C.R.A, the vice mayor needs an agenda as well.
What does she need?
Needs an agenda.
Tim, do you have another one? Already.
So you got an agenda? Okay, good evening. The date is October 27th, 2025, and the time is 7:06 p.m. I hereby call to order the meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency Board of the City of Groveland, Florida. Can we please take the roll?
Chair Keith Keogh.
Here.
Vice Chair Barbara Gaines. Here. Board Member Mike Radzick.
I'm here.
Board Member Judith Fike, absent. Board Member Amy Jo Carroll.
Here.
Board Member Matthew Bauman, absent. Board Member Daniel Corsi.
Here.
Commissioner Anthony Zapatini, absent. City Attorney Anita Garasi Carver.
Here.
Community Development Director Timothy Maslow.
Here.
C.R.A. Coordinator John Jones. Sergeant at Arms Chief Sean Ramsey. And Recording Secretary Sierra Bender are here.
We have a quorum. Can we please stand for the pledge to the flag?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
Is there anything on the consent agenda that the council would like removed? Okay, Sierra, would you go ahead and read the consent agenda?
Yep, a consideration of approval, August 25th, 2025, C.R.A. Governing Board meeting minutes.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Any discussion? Seeing none, any public input? Seeing none, let's go ahead and...
You get a second?
Second? Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Second?
Done.
We'll go ahead and take the roll, please.
Vice Chair Gaines, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Carroll, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Corsi?
Aye.
Board Member Radzick?
Aye.
Okay, and Chair Keogh, how do you vote?
Aye. All right, consider agenda item 1, consideration of recommendation of approval, ordinance 2025-22, Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Board establishment. Mr. Maslow?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have Mr. Jones here tonight as our C.R.A. coordinator providing a presentation. Special thanks for his input as well as Anita's. We've been working at this since about back November, almost a full year at this point. We've provided some presentations, some pros and cons in terms of creating an advisory board with the intent of providing something similar to our Planning and Zoning Advisory Board. Since then, we've had some feedback from the board in terms of which members from the governing board would be still remaining on the governing board. We had some feedback that we made some changes since the last meeting. Also term limits, instead of looking at 4-year terms, we thought 2-year terms might be a little bit more feasible for those volunteering on the board. We had some conversations in looking at the various council districts and when their term limits are and how that aligns with the appointments, as well as who qualifies in terms of serving for the board and for candidates. So with that said, Mr. Jones has a presentation prepared, and our goal tonight is to approve this and bring it to City Council.
All right. All right. Thank you, Tim. Mayor Keough, ladies and gentlemen of the C.R.A. Governing Board, my name is John Jones with GAI CSG, 610 South Street, Orlando, Florida. Tonight's agenda, whoa, where'd she go? All right, it stayed. Okay, and it went away. Just 1 second. All right, it's back. All right, tonight's agenda, we're going to talk about the advisory board, its purpose and powers. All right, where's the IT guy? All right, and we'll see how quickly we can read. C.R.A. Advisory Board, the purpose is to provide support to the governing board, enable in-depth discussion and analysis of C.R.A. projects and redevelopment proposals, and provide technical expertise to the board and professional insight. The powers of the C.R.A. board is very limited, the advisory board that is to only make recommendations to the governing board, to monitor and oversee the effectiveness of the C.R.A. plan and make recommendations for potential changes to the redevelopment plan for consideration by the governing board, and make recommendations regarding qualifying applications for participation in the C.R.A. business assistance programs, and to review and make recommendations regarding the Groveland C.R.A. board and the consistency of the proposals received with the adopted C.R.A. plan. Membership and terms, there'll be 7 members. There'll be a member, each one appointed from each one of the council districts, as well as 2 at-large members. The city council members will pick one, and applicable professional backgrounds are desired. And those applicable professional backgrounds include landscape architects, economic developers, real estate professionals, engineering professionals, folks that have a skill that would be valuable to the operation of the C.R.A. and the implementation of the C.R.A. plan. The terms of service, they would start in January 2026. It'd be a 2-year term, as Mr. Maslow pointed out, in order to provide some flexibility to the folks that don't want to necessarily make a 4-year commitment, but enable 2-year participation. Districts 1, 3, and 5, and 1 at-large member would start in January 26 with the initial 1-year term and 2-year term to commence in 2027 and end in 2029. Districts 2 and 4 and 1 at-large term member would start in January 2026, 2-year term with a new term to start in 2028. And members may also be reappointed to multiple terms. Meetings. The meetings would occur on alternating months of the C.R.A. Governing Board meetings, and the day of the week would be determined by the advisory board membership. And that's the short and sweet presentation with regards to the establishment of the Groveland Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Board. At this time, I'd like to open it up to discussion and any comments that you have.
Okay, thank you for that presentation.
Yes, sir.
Discussion? Maybe Joe?
I have a couple questions.
Yes, ma'am.
So would that include our 2 members would stay on this board, or?
Yes, ma'am. The governing board form and composition would not change.
Would not change at all?
Correct.
Okay. And it would still be a sunshine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question to clarify?
Yeah, go ahead.
Would those 2 members now be at-large members, or where do they fit in? The 2 members that are currently on
The 2 members of the governing board, the 2 at-large members would remain on the governing board. Yes, sir.
So they would be the at-large members? Okay.
They
So they
wouldn't
would be on
change.
both?
So your current code is not changing, and so you'll have 2 at-large that are in the C.R.A. district that either work there or are living in the
Okay.
C.R.A. Nothing about the establishment of the C.R.A. board itself or its makeup is changing at all.
Okay, thank you.
So hold it, what you're saying is we're going to just add in another board?
Yes. That's what they're saying.
It's probably your better bet, Mr. Mayor, and I'll tell you why. So the C.R.A. monies that we're collecting is collected from businesses and from homeowners. We shouldn't, in my opinion, be going up to communities outside of the CRA and have them come down here and basically say, this is what we're going to do. They don't have any skin in the game other than having a nice downtown, okay? It would almost be like me being, taking over Trilogy CDD. I mean, I don't have any right to be up there doing their CDD work. So why would I want anyone from Trilogy or Trinity Lakes or otherwise coming to the CRA spending or recommending what to do in the CRA area? So I think you get the best of both worlds in that you got a business and a homeowner, or maybe two businesses and two homeowners, and then you got that expertise that you can rely upon that maybe can fill in the gaps. The other thing that you need to take consideration is that the CRA plan or the CRA vision was adopted in 2011?
2011 is when it started. Yes, sir.
2011. And it's been revisited a couple of different times. So for the continuity of that plan, because one of the things we've had issues with through the years is when we had a changeover in the CRA board, council, everything came to a grinding halt. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of things have not been done in this downtown area. I'm not even going to go into some of the things that I heard, other than, that is definitely, you don't want to have that happen again. So extending the board to 5 other members throughout the city would give you that expertise and at the same time, the continuity that I think that you would need.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the, if I can answer, I'm not questioning the makeup of the advisory board. It's similar, and we said we wanted it similar to P and Z, but we didn't have, when council moved away from the P and Z, we didn't keep an advisory board, a P and Z board, and then a council. It was to streamline things, and what we're doing is adding another layer of bureaucracy to the whole thing, and that's not, I'm just saying from my standpoint, that's not what we originally talked about, or it was not the way I originally interpreted what we were talking about. It was to set it up just like the P and Z, where the C.R.A. Advisory Board had its meetings. They could go and research things. They could come to an agreement. They could bring the agreement to the council, make the presentation, and the council could move forward with it. I don't know where I went wrong, but that's where I thought it was going.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, maybe John would be great at explaining some of the key differences between the advisory board and the governing board. Because I believe there are ways that you could use the advisory board in a similar fashion to the P&Z board, but there's a technicality between the council making decisions and the community redevelopment agency. So John, can you maybe expand on that a little bit for the board?
Those are all very good questions and very good points. The Florida statutes have some very strict guidance with regards to how CRAs are governed. They can either be governed by their local establishing council, or they can set up a CRA governing board. That board has the power of the purse strings with regards to making CRA plans, making budgets, spending money. And the statutes also require if the city council, the CRA advisory board or CRA board, if it's not the city council, that they be employed within the CRA or live within the CRA. So what you have now is kind of a hybrid. You have your governing board, which is composed of the council and also 2 at-large members that are residents or have businesses or do business within the CRA. And then you're also considering having a technical advisory board. The technical advisory board would not have any powers of the purse strings, and they would also not have any requirements with regards to residency or operating a business within the CRA. You have indicated in the draft ordinance a preference with regards to technical skills and professional disciplines and expertise that you would like to see on the advisory board. And so that's kind of how you framed what you would like to see with regards to membership on the board.
I kind of jumped in there, and I shouldn't have. Let me go around, and I'm going to come back to your first statement about it could be either or.
Yes, sir.
And we'll discuss that.
Yes, sir.
So I am once again confused. You have the governing board. then you have the advisory part of it, and then you have a technical part of it too. So is that 1, 2, 3?
No, ma'am. It would only be two boards. It would be your governing board, which is y'all, and the advisory board, which would be the technical board, so to speak, because you are hoping to get technical expertise from the advisory board through its membership.
Okay, so I don't know where the chart is, but how many would be on the advisory board?
7.
7. Now, I thought I heard you say that they either have to live or work.
And
They
this,
don't have to be in the C.R.A. area?
for members of the governing board of the C.R.A., they have to either reside within the C.R.A. or operate a business within the C.R.A. or do business within the C.R.A. Those are the state requirements for membership of a C.R.A. governing board that is not composed of the city council. So, when you establish a C.R.A., the city determined what type of governing board they would want to have. And they said, we can either appoint people to run the C.R.A. or we can run the C.R.A. ourselves as the council. And so y'all decided to run it as the council and then also add 2 additional at-large memberships and 1 ex officio membership to increase coordination with the county, but also at-large members as well. So the type of governing board that you have now is the City Council Governing Board. And that does not require the residency or the operation of a business or doing business requirement for membership because you're elected officials.
Okay, so let's just say that someone lived in an unincorporated area, but they do business in the city. Would they be able to participate?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So you're basically looking possibly at an advisory board to the C.R.A. That's what this is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The purse strings still will be governed by us?
Correct.
Okay.
By the C.R.A. Governing Board.
Okay. Good idea. History. Why do we not have all of the land down at Cortez? I'll answer it. Charles Rudd was the C.R.A. manager. He had the checkbook. He was basically buying property without having a plan. So we've got properties off of the tax rolls since 2006, maybe more, okay, with no absolute plan on what to do. That's why I ask about who's governing, who's going to be holding the purse strings. My God, time for me to leave. So just something you all should know is why are we having problems with Cortez? Someone other than us was basically writing out checks, and that was taken away from him.
So I haven't been part of the conversation from the very beginning, which you said it was about a year ago. But I think this first came back in January. We started this conversation again. And my understanding is the whole reason why we were doing this advisory board is that we could have people help us, technical experts, help us make decisions in regards to the votes that we're, as a governing board, making on behalf of the C.R.A. So, you know, when we're looking at how many people are involved, I don't think it's a problem that it's 7 and 7, because we need more people, we need more voices. I think they definitely need to be technical, right? I'm not a developer, I'm not a landowner, but I am a business, and that's my skin in the game. But we need people who are technical, people who can advise us. So from my understanding, that was the original spirit of what we were trying to do, is to bring those people in for that purpose. It's just because we wanted people that we could task to projects, help us come up with that information, and advise us on what to vote for.
Okay. I want to go back to, are we unable to just have the council run it now? Because we said before we're going to do a hybrid.
You can establish the governing board as you see fit, as the establishing agency.
Okay. And so then the council would hold the purse strings, right? Based on the recommendations of the board, the advisory board, right?
CRA governing board would hold the purse strings for the CRA, and the city would approve the CRA's annual budget.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
just in the spirit of delegation, if you're thinking there's just too many boards or too many meetings, one suggestion might be, if the board agrees to this, you could hold your CRA governing board meeting the same night as your council meeting and just have a very scaled down agenda and wear your CRA hat
Please,
at
no.
some point during the meeting and then make your decision rather than having multiple meetings.
Then we're all making the same
That's just
face.
one idea if you're looking to the CRA advisory board to perform a little bit more similar to the P&Z advisory board.
I just want to be clear, and I probably am in the minority on this, but we started this, I remember when it started and what the conversation was, and it was voted down, right? And then it had to come back. But we did start this to say, you know, in the past, we've seen a model that really works, and that's the P&Z board. When we took the P&Z and made it a separate board, advisory board to the council, things started happening much quicker, and the decisions were made with a lot more input and a lot more questions than we had before, pointed questions. That's number one. Number two, the amount of reading, and I'm not crying, but I'm just telling you that the amount of reading, I've got a whole list of stuff for this meeting that you have to go through for this, and then the council it's almost hard to ask anybody to go through all that in detail and be effective because you're scanning it rather than really reading it, okay? And so when I look at, and just me, I'm not talking with anybody else, when I look at how the P&Z advanced over the past several years, that was the model that it was originally put forth to this, that we had an advisory council. We streamline it so we don't have all these, a meeting and then another meeting with the same people, which in business, who would do that? Have one meeting with 5 who really control it, 5 and 2, and then go on to another meeting to approve what the 5 and 2 just met on. So it didn't sound like it was effective use of knowledge, labor, and everything else. So the last thing I would want to do is add another set of meetings, another time the attorney has to be here, that we have to have a secretary taking notes and all that stuff, just so that they can come and see this board so they can judge on what that board did, and then they go to the council, which is already here, and say, let's vote on it again. It just doesn't sound logical to me on that. At the end of the day, the council holds its purse strings. At the end of the day, you know, whether it's 5 or 7, the council still holds the purse strings because there's 5 of a majority. So why do we have to have the middle? Why can't we set it up just like P&Z, and I'm asking that for myself.
Yes, sir.
And have the P&Z come, the advisory board come before, just like we have the P&Z come before with zoning changes, with all kinds of things that they've sifted through in detail, and sometimes over several meetings, you know, to get something right. And why can't we take that level of detail and apply it to this, C.R.A.? You just said, you know, things have been stalled for a long time. We've got to change the model.
The answer to your question lies in the Florida statutes. The establishment of the land planning agency is at the determination of the city council, and the establishment of the C.R.A. board is at the determination of the city council, but there's very explicit directions and guidance in the Florida statutes. So your C.R.A. governing board, even though it's a city council, it's a separate agency from the city council, and it operates as the advisory to the city council, even though it's the same people.
So now I'm starting to see where you were coming from, and that it's still the council meeting, but we just say, it's the same amount of time, it's the same, rather than us saying, let's have the council vote, we just say, have the 5 members vote as the C.R.A. board?
Yes.
And then, so we add no more layers, we still have the same.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. In dealing with code and policy, writing and rewrites and just development process, one begins to work out the muscle of the workaround. And sometimes you can't change things at the state, but you can look at the spirit and the intent and figure out something that would work within those confines. So I wouldn't recommend, we'll take an example project that, like the realignment plan that we're going to be talking about tonight, and you're looking at infrastructure, there's a lot there. There's stormwater, there's streetscape design, utilities, there's circulation, a whole list of things. That would take you all a lot of time when you also have everything else that you have to take care of as a council member or a mayor. This would allow you to delegate to an advisory board of businesses and residents who are in the C.R.A. area that would be knee-deep in the details and in the weeds with John, myself, and Anita and their staff, and then they would give you recommendations as an advisory board, and you would take the action on a city council night, but we would just have to call that special section of the meeting the C.R.A. governing board meeting. I think this is similar to the way the city of Winter Park does it. I believe Lake County also does this, where they hold the C.R.A. meeting typically, the governing board meeting, typically the same day as the council. I get some of the concern that might make for a longer meeting, but it's something that you could possibly try out if that's truly in the intent of this board and the city council. It's just an idea.
But would it be a longer meeting because it has to come before the council anyway? As 5 members, what it would do is allow us to have one less meeting because we don't have to be at the C.R.A. advisory meeting, right?
Correct.
You'll have to read it as the C.R.A. and then come back and read it as the council.
Not all decisions, though, go to the city council.
That's true, too.
Only the
The
budget.
C.R.A. approves the budget, the city council approves your budget, but the C.R.A. board has a lot of decision-making authority, and not everything goes to your council.
So all of the streetscape projects and contracts that you approved tonight, you approved as this C.R.A. governing board. If you appointed a advisory board, or if you appointed someone else as the C.R.A. governing board, they would be making those contract decisions, not the city council.
Yeah, but if we have them as an advisory board and us as the C.R.A. board.
Yes, sir.
Then we keep things and we scale down another meeting, we scale down all that cost, and we get people that is exactly what you say. When we went over on the phone today, when we look at all the stuff that's coming down on this group, it's an amazing amount of things that we can't walk away from, and we can't delay, because we've got a bypass going through, and everything has to be set in place before that happens.
Yes, sir. Yes, the intent of the advisory board is to take the workload off of the city council acting as the governing board and provide technical assistance and recommendations so that you don't have to meet as frequently, and they can parse through the information and the reading and then give you a recommendation. So you would meet, possibly half as many times.
I appreciate you taking the time to explain that to me.
Yes, sir.
Any
Mr.
further?
Chair, just one other thought. If you do decide to move in that nature, I believe a code change might be required for the C.R.A. governing board once you approve this at the city council in terms of meeting schedule, if you should choose to move in that direction.
I think we'll have to get a motion and stuff, and I can't make the motion, but I think there's too many loose ends here still to be ironed out. And we're missing a very important member tonight that's very vocal on this subject. I would think that we might want to, can I say it? I think we might want to table if somebody wants to make that motion and go back and get with us, and maybe, if possible, get with us on when Mike does the individual, if he could be there so we could ask a lot of questions before this.
Yes, sir.
And then when we get here, I think we can be a little more clear. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to table.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table.
Means you don't have to do nothing.
Any further discussion? I was going to get ready to do sign language, but motion to table and a second. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take the roll, please.
Board Member Razik, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gaines?
Aye.
Board Member Corsi?
Nay.
Board Member Carroll?
Nay.
Chair Keo?
Aye.
3.
Thank you. So we tabled it. New business, agenda item 2, for consideration of approval, 2025-72, renewal of the continuing services contract for Community Redevelopment Agency Support Services with C.R.A. Community Solutions Group. Mr. Jones, please present.
Yes, sir. I would like to respectfully request there it is. It's all right. Beautiful. Mayor Keough, ladies and gentlemen of the C.R.A. Governing Board, I'd like to thank the city and the C.R.A. For the opportunity to continue to provide C.R.A. support services. GAI, CSG, we've got a wide range of technical services, expertise, and resources available to the C.R.A. to help you facilitate the implementation of the plan. Tonight, I'd like to give a brief overview of the resources available to the C.R.A. and how they directly relate to the implementation of the C.R.A. plan while you consider renewing the C.R.A. support services contract. So tonight, we're going to talk about the vision, the 4-point plan, point by point how the GAI resources support you and what the team is, who the team members are, put faces to the names. It's more than just me. And then what the current and anticipated support activities are for the next year. There's your C.R.A. It's about 1,600 acres. As you can see, the recently expanded C.R.A. The C.R.A. vision, preserve the traditional urban character of the area, enhance public spaces, promote redevelopment of targeted sites, invest in roadway improvements, and capitalize on projects that help attract large employers to the area. The 4-point action plan addresses attracting development through activating opportunity sites, supporting activity in downtown through infrastructure improvements, economic development through business recruitment, and then themes, wayfinding, and streetscapes through reinforcing connections throughout the downtown and the neighborhoods. The action plan points and the resources available to the Groveland C.R.A. include the following. For activating opportunity sites, the resources available to you include targeted site marketing, developing alternatives for specific sites, positioning sites for marketing, and preliminary site design and test fits, and then also infrastructure impact analysis. If you're considering a certain type of development in the C.R.A., how will that affect the delivery of infrastructure? What would the demand on infrastructure be? These resources also include economic impact analysis, return on investment analysis, development review agreement and incentive agreement review, and then tax increment revenue projections. Regarding action point number 2, infrastructure improvements, the C.R.A. resources available include engineering services, sanitary sewer design, stormwater design plan implementation, and roadway design. We've got a vast list of infrastructure improvements identified, and we've got a vast army of engineers and landscape architects available to help you implement that plan. Business recruitment and retention, your C.R.A.'s resources include our established relationships with a wide range of developers and the development community, experienced business recruiters and economic developers on the team, incentive agreement review and monitoring, and also return on investment of C.R.A. or return on investment of C.R.A. investments. And number 4, action point, reinforcing connections. CRA resources include mobility plans, complete street design, park and open space design, and wayfinding and trail design. The GAI CSG team, the actual members, who does the work? There we go. We've got Pete, we've got Blake, we've got Tom. Tom has operated the downtown Orlando C.R.A., helped establish that and run it for about 25 years. Blake's our planning director, and Pete's our vice president and business sector leader.
Good people.
Kristen Caborn is our landscape architect principal. Laura Smith, I understand you met her earlier this year, as our financial analyst, and myself as the C.R.A. Community Redevelopment Service Provider. Proposed activities for fiscal year 25-26 include CRA coordinator services, preparation of your annual report, targeted development analysis of specific sites, and brownfield area advisor. Support activities and tasks are all require authorization from the city, and separate scopes and work orders may be developed at the city's request. Additional 25-26 activities include incentive development agreement review and evaluation, financial analysis services, including TIF projections and ROIs, and GIS and graphic services to help produce maps, plans, 3D dimensional animations, and elevations of proposed development. So all of these are the services that we offer and the anticipated services that will be requested or may be requested by the CRA for fiscal year 25-26. And I think that's the end of the presentation.
Very nicely done. Thank you. Any questions? Dan, do you have a question?
Nothing right now.
Mr. Radzik? Nope. Amy Jo?
How much is the price of this contract?
The contract is $60,000, not to exceed, and it's billed on an hourly basis.
Okay. No, good.
It's also consistent with the adopted CRA budget already, and I don't believe they changed the fees from last year to this year either.
Thank you.
And it is a not-to-exceed budget, so if the funds aren't used, they're returned to the CRA. And for the past 2 years or 3 years, I think we've returned about between $25,000 and $30,000 to the CRA.
Thank you.
John, I believe under number 3,
Yes, ma'am.
you talk about experienced business recruiters.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me what the experienced business recruiters and economic developers are currently doing to help bring business to Groveland?
Right now, we helped you establish some of your incentive programs, your redesigned small business assistance program, and then there are no other marketing activities planned at this time. We helped you prepare the site opportunity brochure, and that was about 2 years ago. So there have been no directives yet from the CRA for that service.
So is that the business recruiters and economic developers, is that part of the contract? And if it is, what do you need from us to get recruiters to recruit businesses and bring them to Groveland?
To answer your questions, the answer is yes, it is included in the contract. And the direction that is needed is the targeted sites, prioritized sites that you would like to see, the type of development on those sites, and then we would sit down and start positioning those sites to be presented to the business recruiters and economic developers.
So would the ball be now in the C.R.A. court?
For parcels located within the CRA, yes, ma'am.
So Director Tim, who would bring up the conversation about the business recruiters and economic development? And my reason for asking that is that a month or two ago, I went to, I think it was a LEAD meeting or something like that, a LEAD dinner, and it was either Eustis or Mount Dora.
Eustace.
that got these like ginormous $1 million brought to the city. I look at Mineola, where they have the hospital, and I'd like to know if we got it, then why don't we use it? And what do we need to do to get it going?
Feedback from this board is a great starting point. I have had conversations with John already on health and medical services and how that would better fit into the C.R.A., looking at various uses, ideal targeted locations, and how we could start recruiting some of those healthcare providers. That's just one example of one of the conversations I've had with John. Feedback from the board and direction from the board in terms of what you would like to see would be the ultimate direction.
Because we can all talk the talk, but when it comes to walking the walk, we need to do that as well. You know, like right now, I know a PA, a physician's assistant, that is looking in Groveland to have an office. Now, that's not the ginormous $1 million like Eustis has, but we need to be about it. We don't need to just talk about it. We need to be about it.
Mr. Chair, if I may, this could be an agenda item for the November meeting, which would allow the board some time to consider what they would want to see out of John and his team's efforts in terms of business recruitment, and then we could put together a scope of work tailored for that specific activity for him. And that would be connected with this contract, too.
We'll get a consensus vote on that. Don't let me forget that. But what an amazing presentation.
Can I just put my 2 cents in about
Yeah.
something? So business recruitment is important. Getting an understanding on the new board as to what tools you all have is just as important. Like, for instance, I go back to Cortez. We own most of Cortez, but we don't own the rest. We don't own the liquor store. We don't own Kimmy's Florist. The only way you're going to get those parcels is to get a developer who you can partner with and let them go out and get those pieces. There's $1 million businesses, and we're never going to get it from the C.R.A. But you can actually partner with, give away the land in exchange for making sure that you get those small businesses that you want, whether it's a doctor's office or otherwise. So, you know, one of the things before you start looking at recruitment of businesses is to get the new C.R.A. board up to speed as to what it is that they do and what tools that they have.
Excellent input, and we have not discussed this, but we had a discussion when I came in, and I find, just me, not speaking for anybody else, we seem to be in a ready, fire, aim all the time. What is the scope of what we need to do? How can we go out and get a business if we don't have parking? When is the parking going to come in? What is first, what's second, what's third, what's fourth? So that you can really go and ask a business that will fit. Because right now, we're not going to get many people because there's no parking, right? Or for some other reasons. We don't know what we're going to look like when we grow up, or we're going to bulldoze the whole thing down, and we're going to talk about it more in just a minute. If he doesn't talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. But what I wanted to ask is, of all this stuff that you have presented on being able to manage and implement stormwater drains, being able to manage and implement all these different things, what have we done? Because I'm only here for a year now, almost. What can you hang your hat on that this is what we did?
Lake David Park.
The what?
Lake David Park. That was identified as a C.R.A. identified as a C.R.A. objective, and then we prepared the conceptual master plan for that.
Okay.
The establishment of the Elise Tomlin Center. Oh, pardon me.
And anointed.
Yes, the establishment of the Elise Tomlin Center. That was also something we can hang our hat on. And the opportunity site brochure created several years ago served as the informational entree to the development, how do you say, proposals that you've received for the former cannery.
The Avalon project.
Yes, the Avalon project,
Oh,
yes, sir.
very good.
So that was the initial bread on the water that attracted developers. And so one of the, how do I say this? One of the items, or one of the things that the Groveland C.R.A. had great difficulty with is that you were very, very strong in aspiration, identifying potential projects, what you wanted to do in the long term, but when it came to implementation, those things didn't happen. I remember one meeting we talked about how many things were identified by the C.R.A., and there were over 117 projects identified over a 10-year period, and only about 9 of them were acted on during that 10-year period.
Wow.
Well, a lot of it was because of State Road 50, and again, like you said, Mr. Mayor, is that, how can you attract a business without having any parking or otherwise? So everything goes back to the state road, and now that that's getting ready to shovel dirt.
Correct.
You're going to see a lot of activity.
State Road 50 had a lot of uncertainty over the market. And so now that that's being resolved and there's a date certain with regard to construction, and the city is moving ahead with the implementation of the roadway improvements surrounding that, and that will serve that, now's the time when you're going to see more activity. So it is inherent upon the C.R.A. board and the city council to identify what industries you would like to see in your downtown, doing an inventory of the available sites that can utilize those industries that can utilize those sites, and positioning those sites for those industries. They may not have the land uses needed, they may not have the entitlements needed, there may not be the infrastructure there. But first we need to identify what you want, identify the inventory of available pieces, and then how do we position those pieces to attract the developers. There's a lot of homework that needs to be done before we start having lunches with developers talking about what they can do in Groveland.
Very, very well put, and I think that leads into some of the things that are coming up on the agenda, so please don't go anywhere.
I got another question, and maybe it's for Mr. Maslow. Refresh my memory, but didn't we ask for a market analysis of the city-owned property within the C.R.A.? Did we ever get that? Because
Appraisals, those should be here by the November meeting, at the latest the December meeting is what the appraisal team is telling me.
that was a while ago, but that's going to give you all a lot of, tools to do, what you're going to do down at the old police station otherwise, but I'm surprised it's
I
taken
believe
this
there's over 20 parcels included. Fortunately, it took a little bit time longer than expected to get through the contract and procurement, but they've assured me at the earliest the November meeting, at the latest the December meeting. And that's going to be very telling in terms of what we have in our books in terms of assets as value to either partner with developers or sell the property or lease, but doing something proactive with the properties, because to Mr. Radzik's point, they've been sitting for close to 20 years, not on the tax rolls and not creating any value. And that's opportunity cost, not only for quality of life, but also missed revenue to invest in infrastructure. So it's kind of a domino impact.
Not creating any expense either, right? Let's go. I know
minimal.
the Strong Towns philosophy, but I know the other side of that too, But thank you very much. Are we acting on this tonight, or are we?
Yes, staff is recommending approval of GAI contract. We're requesting your consideration, your approval as well.
And have we asked anybody else that's involved in this, if they're interested?
We had an RFQ, request for qualifications, back in 2023. Staff feels confident. Procurement hasn't really kicked us back to the RFQ or RFP process. So at this point, it's an annual update. We probably will get to the point where another RFQ will be issued, just to go out there and be competitive. John has a great firm, but there's a few other firms that are comparable out there that would likely bid on this.
John, please don't take this personally, okay?
Yes, sir.
But I'd like to see the scope, because what I just heard is we had all this stuff all along on implementation of stormwater and all this other stuff that, we've been talking about and been held up and all this stuff, and what I heard from here is we didn't use it, we didn't activate it. Is that not right?
The resources was available to you. You had other priorities at the time.
And we didn't activate it. So I'd really like to make sure that we have a clear scope on exactly what we're going to do. Was there any money left over this year, or the
Yes, sir.
50 grand?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, taxpayer resources not activated, you know? I mean, we need to really have an understanding of exactly of all this we just saw, what's actually going to be implemented, you know, what's going to be used. And I'll tell you, if somebody's going to do the whole infrastructure plan, there's money to be saved other places that we have other people working on infrastructure plans. How many damn infrastructure plans do we need going?
So part of the problem, if I can be blunt, is the 7 of us. We have all this visioning, we've got all these plans, but I'm just now getting the market analysis done after all this time. So in the future, and I've said this before, when we agree to get a market analysis, Mr. Maslow, can I get that in 4 weeks? Mm-hmm. No, Mr. Radzik, that's just too small, you know, or too quick. But get a buy-in and get definitiveness, because if you want to hold people accountable, measurable, then you need to have it.
Right, and now we'll know who does it, right? Is that what you do?
Yes, sir.
So that we don't have to go out and try to find things that we're already paying for this and not using that
Well,
resource.
just a point of clarity, I think we're talking about the appraisals of the city-owned properties.
Just generally speaking,
Right.
but the appraisals have been out there for how long now?
It's been several months, to your point, yeah. Longer than I would like to see.
Yeah, so Mayor Keough, ladies and gentlemen of the CRA board, these are the resources that are available to you. The fact that these resources may not have been utilized in the past were more of a exercise in budgeting and what was available. You had very limited resources and you wanted to get a lot done. There was also a lot of uncertainty about State Road 50. So you focused on improving the city itself for residents and visitors, to act as an attractor, as one of your initial economic development activities, the investment in Lake David Park, the investment in the streetscapes downtown. And so by doing that, you've taken those steps. You've done what you could with the resources that you've had available. So it's not any shortcoming of the CRA that you haven't utilized these resources in the past.
John, there's always room for improvement.
Yes, ma'am.
So the question becomes, how do we make good, better, best? And the question I have for you is, how much money was given, not used this year?
I think it was around $24,000, if not more.
And so, Director Tim, what happens to that money that's left over?
It goes
It
back
rolls
into
over
the
into
TIF.
the CRA to the following year.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's carry forward into the CRA for the following year.
It's
It goes back to
budgeted.
the CRA.
Yeah, and the
We don't lose the
carryover-
money.
Your carryover for CRA has to be allocated to projects, and I think you allocated everything to downtown infrastructure improvements. So that's where the money ended up going for this fiscal year.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Mr. James.
Yes, sir.
Do you guys work directly with Woodard and Kern when it comes to the stormwater improvement recommendations and all that? How often do you guys have those conversations with them?
Do we work with?
Woodard and Kern.
We have not, I have not personally in the past. I would have to ask my stormwater engineers that question.
Okay. The reason I ask is we have,
Yes,
so
sir.
we talked about assets, right? When it comes to the properties that we're getting those appraisals on, but also we already know that stormwater improvements tough when you don't know what 50% of your assets even are. That was the last meeting or meeting before that. We discovered that we don't even know. So when I look at what our capabilities are as far as tasking GAI and what's in our contract, I see those limitations as if those conversations aren't happening regularly with someone like Woodard and Kern, or we're not really kind of working cross-platform, whatever you want to say, then that kind of makes it hard for us to utilize the resources that you guys give us.
Yes, sir.
So that's just my opinion on that. And same thing with the business recruitment. I haven't been on the board that long, but we've never had a conversation as far as actually identifying what kind of businesses we want here in Groveland. So I think that, again, that's not necessarily GAI's fault. Like, we set the priorities on this board. I think that that's something that is kind of a miss for us, just personally. I think that, you know, as far as strong towns concepts, right, it's not necessarily finding the exact one that you want for the next 10 years. There's a lot of incremental growth that comes along with those kind of concepts. So I think understanding how do we utilize what we have now? How do we get people in now? And naturally, as you bring in businesses and you increase services, property values goes up, and certain businesses will move out because the property values are higher, tax values higher, and their rents go up. So I think that when we think about like strategically, how are we bringing this all together with stormwater, with road infrastructure, with GAI business recruitment, I think that that's something that we just really haven't done yet. And I think it's hard to be strategic without those conversations, so.
Okay, any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve Resolution 2025-72.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Can we go ahead and take the roll, please?
Well, actually, you have anything else, Amy? Mr. Jones?
Sir.
Been a lot of years. That visioning plan that we went through was incredible. There's been a lot of accomplishments. Again, having seen a lot of it from the ground up, a lot of it you were involved in. Appreciate everything that you've done for the board and that you will be doing for the board. So,
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure doing this work for the city and for the C.R.A., and you have accomplished a lot when you look back at where you were and what you've done now. Your strategic plan, your comprehensive plan, and your C.R.A. plan all reflect the same core values of the city and the residents. They all have shared objectives that flow from one document to the other. So the city is on a good course. You've set up a good roadmap to follow. Now it's just a matter of following that roadmap and taking advantage of the opportunities incrementally as you grow.
and the expanded C.R.A. area that you had a lot of work that you had to do with that.
That was
a
exciting.
big deal. That gives you all a lot of years for TIF to basically redevelop, to use in redevelopment or otherwise. So it was a very good idea.
Thank you. Let's go ahead with a roll call, please.
Board Member Carroll, how do you vote?
Aye.
Board Member Razzak?
Aye.
Board Member Corsi?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gaines?
Aye.
And Chair Keo.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. ladies
Don't
and
leave, okay, because I think it's very important what's coming up. You can sit
Yes, sir.
down, but don't exit the building, okay?
Okay.
Okay, we're into public comment. I think our public left. The public has exited the building. We're board reports. We'll start with Dan.
Sure. First thing I want to talk about is some of the conversations that we've had around the train depot. This has been something that we've put quite a bit of time on, and I say we, it's me, it's Tim, it's the Historic Society, and then Representative Ross from Avalon. Now I want to preface this, every single one of these conversations that we've had in this group have nothing to do with contracts, okay? This is all just conceptual. If or when this is deeded over to us, what can we do with it? And what kind of uses, what kind of operational costs, and even just overall conceptualizing what that partnership looks like when it comes to physically where it's at and building a plaza around it and all that kind of stuff. So really it's just a design conversation. And I just want to preface that because I think that that's been a concern. But yeah, we're really just getting together and we're trying to find cool creative uses for the depot. So some of the stuff that we've talked about is using it for, like, what kind of uses we can use it for the museum, but also how do we make money? Because ultimately, when you're putting money into a project like something like the depot, there's this historic value, the cultural value to the community, but there has to be financial value. There has to be, the bottom line has to be respected. It's taxpayer money. It's, you know, if there's any fundraising involved, well, no matter what it is, it's other people's money. We have to use it wisely. That's something that has to be considered. So, so we've been looking at event space. We've been looking at how it can be incorporated into a larger plaza. So that's been a really cool conversation as far as exploring those possibilities. And then as far as the design, we really want to see that the depot can be extended to its original size. And I say original, it's the rebuild in the 20s. But its original size, we're still trying to figure out whether that was 60 foot, 80 foot, what that looks like. But how that design kind of fleshes out is going to determine how much money can be made in there when it comes to, you know, using it as an event space and all that kind of stuff. So as far as costs, we do have somebody who's involved who's looking at kind of ballpark stuff. So at some point, we're going to bring this to the board, to council, just as a presentation, right? As say, hey, here are some concepts, here's some ideas, here are the costs that are associated with it. Now, with all of that, obviously, you know, operations, all that kind of stuff has to be considered too. So looking at how do we alleviate the responsibility to the city to maintaining and how to and have somebody else run events and all that kind of stuff. Because we're not looking to try to add work to the city. We're not trying to add work to parks. I think there's a lot of really cool creative ways we can do this. So we're just bringing these as concepts, really just as a community project, community work group, so that we can just put that in council's hand, all right, and let you guys make that decision. And then beyond that, you know, obviously any kind of feedback that the council has, or if you guys want to know who we're talking to, please, we'll tell you, and you can say, and you can go to these people and ask questions directly. You know, but one thing that's super exciting about this is I think that this is one of those projects, looking at the feasibility and looking at what it can do for the community is super exciting, because I think that when it comes to developing anything, a lot of people in the public look at it and say, you know, it's kind of a, it's not the word most people like to hear right now as far as development, right? But redevelopment of a historic structure is something that the community can really get around. So all that I would ask for, you know, for the board, and, you know, ultimately we will present something to the council, is that this is something that community involvement is part of it. You know, I don't think it's something that, this is just, and again, this is my personal opinion, so I want to state that. This is something that has great value to the community, and to leave the community out of the decision-making process would be selling ourselves really short. So that's just my own personal opinion, not the opinion of the group. But yeah, so I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update on that. Again, if you guys have any questions about those conversations, or you want to be part of the conversations, I'm sure there's other people who can do that. So, and then the only other thing that I had, and I kind of wanted to see, you know, obviously with GAI going through and voting the contract, Raznik, I would kind of like to understand even how they originally did their C.R.A. expansion, because when I look at stormwater, and we kind of briefly touched on this, I think I might have brought it up once, with the C.R.A. expansion of the south downtown area, like the Taylorville area, but making sure that we're bringing in the properties and the parks and everything that's involved in the infrastructure upgrades that are needed. I think it would be, you know, just physically, you know, a lot of what is in the C.R.A. is downhill from those properties, and those properties should contribute TIF revenue to any kind of stormwater improvements and all that kind of stuff. So that's just something I would, you know, I'd like to make you know, just look for a consensus to at least have staff look at that, GIA look at that, and let us know what that would look like, what kind of TIF revenue that would, you know, bring in for the C.R.A., and then opposing views if that's something that would negatively affect the general fund. So I would just like to look for a consensus for that to be explored.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Radzik.
So going back to the train station, the development agreement that was presented from Avalon included provisions that the train station be done before X. Well, I'm not really sure where that DA is, but I do know that Finkler or Carabeo is now in a joint venture with Avalon, with Finkler or Carabeo holding on to the property. With that said, and I've said it before, regardless on whether the plaza is going to be here and we're going to have 80 foot more or whatever, getting the train station deeded over, which C.R.A. and Finkler will do tomorrow, is important so that you can start getting the money from the state. Okay, there is absolutely no reason not to get it deeded over, because you can at least get started, you can get contracts going on, you can figure out how you're gonna get the inside cleaned out. So if I was you all, I'd make that number one, since again, it's not as tied to the development agreement and to off in lots like they would, you know, in subdivisions. So that's number one. No marketing materials. We've talked about this for years, and I still haven't seen any marketing materials. And John, you just talked about something earlier today. Yeah, I mean, Evelyn Wilson talked about this in 2008, okay? You know, I mean, I don't know, 2008, 2025, I know government goes slow, but not that slow. Again, I think it's going to be important, especially, Ms. Gaines, when you start talking about wanting, you know, small businesses and whatnot. I mean, if we don't tell them what we've got, I mean, everyone knows about what's going on in Groveland anyway. That's where we're getting all these grant monies from the state and otherwise. But really capitalizing on it with some sort of marketing materials would be important. All right. Number one issue in the downtown area. And when I say downtown, I mean the C.R.A. area, which goes all the way down to Waterside Point almost, and all the way, well, it's all over the place. Stormwater, funding, millions and millions and millions of dollars. Where are you going to get it from? Where you're going to get it from is your profit-sharing agreement that you have with Avalon. All of that TIF, oh yeah, that TIF that you're going to be getting from Avalon, which is profit-sharing, okay? We're not just giving them $25 million or $20 million, we're getting $20 million as well. And you're looking at me strangely, but I'm serious. All of your stormwater needs can be paid for with the majority of it from the $25 million that you should potentially be getting. Now, is it 25, is it 20, is it 15? Who knows with the economy? But when you're working with Mr. Jones or otherwise, and when you're working with Woodard, and you get an idea of how much your stormwater infrastructure is going to cost, knock on my door and tell me that I'm wrong. And I am going to leave it at that, other than to say that sitting on this board has been probably the best experience, because you all get the chance to see what your vision and how it works out. Look at next door in Lake David Park, okay? There's no way would I've ever expected it to be that. Looking at the anointed community services, or even the police station as in the C.R.A. or otherwise. This is the area you get to go home and you get to drive around someday and say, I was part of that, I was part of that. And let me tell you, that's a hell of a lot better than passing an ordinance about, you know, some stupid thing. So enjoy the time on the C.R.A. and recognize that you all make a difference, and it is the one board that you will make the most difference. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. Amy Jo?
First, Dan, did you ask for a consensus?
I did.
Oh, okay. Do we want to do that then?
Oh.
Yeah, Dan had asked for a consensus, and I think we just kind of moved on.
Yeah, let's go back.
I did. I asked for a consensus to have GAI and staff explore the option of expanding the C.R.A. boundaries to cover the entire Taylorville plat.
Just a couple comments with regards to expanding the C.R.A. To expand the C.R.A., you have to go through a process called a finding of necessity. That's a state-guided process where you have to identify specific conditions of slum and blight. And the Taylorville area is on the south of State Road 50, on the east side of town. Okay. The initial expansion, proposed expansion area of the C.R.A. included a lot of that unincorporated area south of State Road 50. And so the reason why you see the boundaries, and I'm not sure if I can go back to that map. No. Okay. The reason why the sawtooth shape on the south side of the boundary is the way it is, and we're going to get the map up here, is because that's in unincorporated Lake County. As part of the negotiations with Lake County, when we were talking about, there we go. Okay, when we were talking about expanding the C.R.A., Lake County said, we don't want any of the unincorporated area, and that's, you can see it on the screen behind you. So if you see where State Road 50 is and all the boxes that are in the C.R.A., those are in the municipal boundary of the city. The area that is on south of State Road 50 that is not included in the C.R.A. is unincorporated Lake County. Unincorporated Lake County did not want to have that area included in the C.R.A. And as part of the negotiations with the county, in order to expand the C.R.A., they said, take that out. So I'm not sure it would be feasible to try and get it included when the county said no the first time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, and if I can just add, Mr. Maslow, we need to make sure that the two members that aren't on the council get that Robinson report, where, you know, that we get from Tallahassee, because you would understand that they're trying to get rid of CRAs altogether, you know, and it might not be a good time to be asking for more and add more fuel to that fire. We're just trying to keep CRAs from being abolished right now.
Yeah,
But they need to get it. I mean, that's my point. There's a lot of stuff that we get that you must not get, so we need to make sure that they get that.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's just a
Yeah.
feasibility, and if it's not feasible, it doesn't make sense, and we don't do it.
Yeah, the original proposed boundary was squared off all the way down the developed and undeveloped area on the south of State Road 50. And unfortunately, that's in unincorporated Lake County. And so the county said no.
Mr.
And now
Chair?
with the SB 180, it could be a 5-story apartment, right, in those areas, so.
Well, I just didn't want to lose sight. I think the conversation that Dan and I had, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but we were looking at the original Taylorville plat. As you can see, the C.R.A. boundary bifurcates that original plat. So all those, basically the neighborhood of downtown, which is mostly residential, but it's a part of our town future land use category between Empire Road, Anderson, and 33. If you think about that, there's no HOA for that area. They are deficient on sidewalks. They are deficient on stormwater infrastructure. They're likely deficient on street lighting. We do have a park down there that might be included in the downtown C.R.A. vision or an improvement at some point. It is all incorporated. It might be wise to conduct a preliminary feasibility study through John and bring that back to the group just to consider.
Even an ISBA on those properties that we don't have, you know, get something worked out with the county where.
I would, based on the history that I saw, and this predates my involvement with the C.R.A., but I saw Mr. Murphy go through the process with John and go ultimately through not only the state but the county for the unincorporated properties. I would shy away from that portion. But if it's incorporated and it's excluded from an HOA, I would consider that. That might help our infrastructure goals for the downtown, especially around stormwater.
Good point. So how would you word that?
Consensus from the C.R.A. board to conduct a feasibility study to expand the C.R.A. boundary to include the original portion of the Taylorville plat platted in 1911.
So moved.
That,
Can I get a,
okay.
is that your motion?
That is my motion.
There you go. Good job.
Nicely done.
Yes.
A second?
I'll second.
And we have a second. Any further discussion? Well, it's a consensus, right?
Yeah.
Just a
It's just a
consensus.
consensus. So yes, and yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. Okay, you have consensus, Mr. Maslow?
All right. Okay. All right. I don't really have much. I went to emo 2 this week, and I just want to say, we did talk about Groveland, and it was all good things, so that was nice. Palm Bay is getting sued this week, not us, so they were there, it was funny. Anyway, it's not normally funny. It's not funny when it's us. But we talked about like our land use and future land use maps, and there was just a lot came up about Groveland, and in a good way, and it was refreshing. So I just wanted to share that we were used as a good example for many things, and it was really, really nice to be a part of.
Great, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Dan, I applaud the efforts of starting talks about the train station. And as you were speaking, you talked about the taxpayers' dollars as well. So when you listed the people who are now a part of these conversations, what I didn't hear, or I don't think that I heard, were like a constituent from Area A or a constituent in the city or whatever. So I have a question to ask you, like, as you all are in this, quote, build and design phase, are you going to give any consideration to having a couple of the taxpayers or constituents in this early design build phase?
Of course, and again, this is all conceptual. This is all just looking at what it can be used for, and how we could get there. None of the decisions made in this group are any kind of final decisions, but of course, we want more community involved. We want to do workshops. We want to bring as many people in as possible. But it obviously the opinions do need to be represented by everybody in Groveland, because everybody, it's not just C.R.A., it's not just the downtown area. There's a lot of people who would enjoy those kind of amenities. So we do want those opinions, and we do want those voices.
And I understand that, but I'm saying in this initial phase right now, when the Historical Society, yourself and other people are I get it about the workshops and, town halls or whatever, about the train station, but right now, you all are conceptualizing, you're conceptualizing about the train station, and I am asking if consideration can be given in the conceptual stage to bring in a couple of people from the community.
Of course, we're always looking for engaged community members. So we have somebody else who recently voiced her opinion. She is a descendant of the person who ran the canning plant, right? So somebody who's been in Groveland for a long time and has a voice and an opinion and history in Groveland. This person just came out just through these conversations. We talk about this with just about everybody we have a chance to, because we want to see more volunteers. We want to see higher engagement in our community. So there in no way is this any kind of exclusive group in any way. We want to see community engaged members. So if you do have some people that you think would be interested, I would be very happy to bring those people in.
I don't, but if I was interested in being a part of the design build, the conceptualizing right now, how would I even find out about it? How would I know to come to you and let you know?
That's why I started the conversation today.
I'm sorry?
I said that's why I started the conversation today. I wanted everybody to know what we're doing. So that is part of the just bringing in, and again, this is a group where, just a community-led group, right? So I wanted the board to know, and anybody who might be watching this, and anybody in this meeting, we're not hiding it in any way. We want people to know that this is happening and that we're having these conversations. So starting the conversation is how we bring those people in. We don't have marketing dollars. We can't market. We can't push information to somebody. This is just a conceptual working group, and we are very, very excited, and we hope that we can bring more people in because we want more ideas. And again, if you want to know who we're talking to, we'll tell you who we're talking to, and you can go have those conversations as well, because there's no bad idea when it comes to this kind of stuff. Because I would say only having 4 or 5 people in a group is very limiting, right? When it comes to these ideas on how to use the space. So we do want more people, and tonight is the start of that conversation.
So if somebody out there wanted to become a part of the design build phase, who would they contact?
So again, I want to keep reiterating, this is not, there's no final designs, there's no final build, there's nothing being put on paper that says this is how this is being used, okay? This is something that we can at some point bring to the council, and there might even be a case to form an official committee around it, which I would support. I just think it's important to understand that this is just the preliminary conversations, and to keep things on track, we want to make sure we understand what we're even trying to accomplish, and that's what I just stated tonight. And again, we want more people in here. So if you have ideas on if you want anyone in the board here wants to promote this concept and bring and put people, like push people towards us, we want that. So please do, because again, we can't. I mean, it's short of running Facebook ads. Like, that's not we don't have money to do that. That's not really the purpose of this group. The purpose of this group is to explore ideas, bring that to council, let council make a decision on how they want to move forward.
Well, as I said, let me reiterate, I applaud you all for getting this started, for giving it some traction. So I get it. I know that this is not you're all making decisions or what, but let me tell you what my theory is. None of us is as smart as all of us. And so that's why I'm asking if someone from the community wanted to be a part of this conceptual or what do you call it, design build? It's
just a conceptual conversation.
And if I wanted to be a part of that,
you can introduce somebody to me. You can introduce them to the Historic Society. Anybody involved, Tim.
I don't have anybody, but
Yeah.
for those out there in TV land,
Mm-hmm.
how would they?
Yeah.
Who would
That's
they
it.
approach?
Me.
Sure.
Tim. Go
I'm
ahead.
just going to interject, just in the spirit of the conversation. So at the last C.R.A. meeting, we had a consensus in terms of who would be on this exploratory working group, if you will, that will ultimately, to Dan's point, provide recommendations back to council in terms of various uses of how the property could be used, the location, the design, timing, various milestones. I also want to give credit to Robin Hoover, who's a resident who also serves on our P&Z board. She's been actively involved with the group as well. My thought was that after a couple additional meetings with the group, we would have some written recommendations to provide to the council. At that point, it could also go to the C.R.A. if you'd like. At that point, you could provide some direction in terms of how you'd like to pursue any public feedback, or if you yourselves as elected officials have any specific material or criteria that you would like either the group or staff to work on, and then come back to you with additional criteria. Those are all options. We're basically here listening to you for feedback and guidance.
Well, I'm going to let it go. Again, kudos to Dan and the group that he's working with, but perhaps I'm not articulating so correctly. So at this point, I'm just going to let it go because I'm not able to get my idea across. So I'll have to take it offline.
I'll follow up with you.
Thank you. More?
No, I'm done.
Okay, if I can just build on that, and it's funny that all this is coming up because I have had conversations this week with two of our staff members, I think that what we have to understand is we have an exploratory group that's going out and exploring, but there will be a committee, and the committee will be representative of the city, and they'll come in with recommendations, but the committee will sift through that and make determinations for recommendations to the C.R.A., however it works out, and then up to the council. The reason I had conversations with our staff and our city manager was that, in my opinion, you don't go out and ask everybody what they want. You go out and say, this is what we have to have. Do we have to have a building that's open because it's on the bike path from 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night? Does it have to be, you lay down the criteria, which then puts your time much better, and you're not the bad guy for saying, no, you can't do it, because you're not going to be there but from 10 to 3 or from here to there. And I know you've asked for business plan and all that. I think that'll come from on a big scale from this exploratory committee, but I think you're going to get the council's going to get their representation on what that's going to be, because there is going to be taxpayer involvement, but I would just hope that we get the scope. I've asked Mr. Jones to sit with myself and maybe the city manager to talk about the scope. And further than that, hopefully at the next, in the November meeting, Mr. Hine will be presenting a very dynamic, and I hope I'm not letting the cat out of the bag, a very dynamic process that other cities have used very successfully about getting input from the community. Not from Keith, not from Dan, but really solid input from the committee, from the residents, and it's been very successful. It's proven around the country, and we've been talking to a group he's been talking to a group to set that up, but how great it'll be when we have actual, I call it marketing because that's behavioral study, right? Material from our citizens, and be able to break it up by region, by demographic, by all the different things that as business does in order to get the decision right. So we're just going through and making the right decision based on what the citizens want, rather than where our heart is. So that committee will be formed, I guarantee you, and we'll be waiting on the input back. But please, if you have a chance to put a little scope together so that you're not wasting time. And I talked to Ross too after you guys talked to him and had a long meeting, but before he redesigns and starts spending a lot of time, we need to really have something that's a little more concrete, and take into his consideration with 1,500 apartments there, what's going to add value right there, to those, to his project as well. Yep. So, and back while we're on the train station, Mr. Redzik is 100% right. We need to go after it real quick. Right now, we're waiting on the approval on the wings. But they've said that the contract always said we could have it any time. So
We're on the same page.
With a letter, we'll get that, but we want to make sure it's what we want. That's the first thing that I had on my list. The second was Lake David Park. We've talked about it. I wonder if you and your great group might have a standard by which we can look. I look at the state, the transportation people. They have a standard on what the landscaping has to be along the corridor and how it has to be maintained, and how, if there's mulch, how much mulch, and how high the grass can get. I would hope that at some point this committee could put together a standard on the paint on the floor, and the different things that we have going on in all of our parks, but especially C.R.A. Lake David Park, so when we go through, we know if we're meeting it or not, rather than just personal opinion. Commercial recruitment I had, and everybody else has already said it. we don't have a marketing plan to go out and find people and talk about the benefits that we have. And that should be a top priority of this group, especially with the bypass coming in. There's no better time to get people to come in on the ground floor when it's of value rather than waiting till later. Appropriations, any appropriations that this committee or Development or C.R.A. wants, the deadline for Mr. Hine to get the ask in is the 9th of November. So if there's some special things that we want to ask the state for, we need to get them to Mr. Hine so he can get them to our lobbyist and make sure that we are lobbying for that money. We need a strategy for C.R.A. for paying for city services. Right now, based on what we all voted on, the C.R.A. pays for no police protection, and, everybody else does, but we voted down a portion of a police officer, a portion of the safety not to be paid for within the C.R.A. That is not fair to the rest of the other 90% of the citizens around. That we need to figure out how we're going to pay for the city services in the C.R.A. area, because we do absorb those city services. So that would be something that we should look at very close as a committee as we move forward. We have two things coming up that Mr. Maslow might want to present on how we're going to, right now, before any redesign work, we have to make up within the C.R.A., nowhere else, the half impact fees for the enterprise fund for the wastewater and water treatment. So that right now is about $3.5 million that we have to pay into as they build. We have to pay the difference because we give half of it off. So when we're going through our finances and our budget, we need to make sure that we're looking at that. And I don't think it's restricted to the C.R.A., but the 10% that will have to come up on permitting fees. We gave half the permitting fees off, but we pay an outside group 60%, so that 10% is going to have to be made up. And as we're going through
That
finances,
contract could be negotiated to, it's been done in the past, where Alpha Inspections agreed to take whatever the 50% is that we do get, so we could maybe negotiate with them and eliminate that 10% difference.
on the 10%. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, so we wouldn't have to pay them, they'd just agree to take 50 on that project.
Yeah, I think that's part of the whole discussion.
Yeah,
that we
okay.
need to bring this back.
But it's got to
before
come up for us, and we can,
us, yeah,
Got you.
to make sure that we all agree and that we understand what the impact is and where that's going to go. I will come back to the stormwater, and that we get $849,000 a year based on the tax revenue. And when you take the police officers and everything else out of that, somebody's got to pay for the services. I don't know we'll have 10 million. And we, in that contract, say that they're only responsible to their property line. So we have to, everything, all the connecting along the road we'll have to do. So that's going to be, that whole stormwater thing was next on my list. We have a master plan on the stormwater, correct?
That's part of our goal for this year, is to have a stormwater master plan for the downtown.
For downtown? I thought we had, didn't we have
I
one?
think our discussion was we were waiting for Woodard and Kern to identify the rest of the assets, because they only had 50% identified. And then we would be able to have a clear plan.
They've done some preliminary work, Mr. Chair, members of the board, but it's not a fully baked master plan for stormwater for the downtown yet.
Okay, and again, I'll come back to what I asked earlier. What does the Lake David stormwater attach into? Because I know that going to 2 ponds. Where is this going? You know, because we haven't got that done yet.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So South Lake Avenue project updates. First of all, thanks for agreeing with the contract with Traverse and our environmental review manager. That's going to help move the project forward. It's going to help us try to aim to have that complete this year with that deadline from the state. I've asked Brenda Toscana, the project manager for the project, to provide periodic updates for the CRA. Those will come in the form of emails at least once a month. I'd like to invite her to each meeting to kind of talk through that and keep you all plugged in and into the loop, following along with that project. It should move quickly. Design, of course, at first, but then we're going to see construction. Part of having those periodic updates, you're going to be hearing from residents, business owners, what's going on here. It will impact some special events, so understanding those impacts will be important just in terms of communication. For stormwater, though, for that project, the general idea is to use curb and gutter to flow the water toward Lake David. But right now, there's no treatment. It's just flowing right in with all the nutrients, all the pollutants. The larger idea, as of right now, it's subject to change with the engineers. I'm not an engineer, but is to use a baffle box to treat the water to make sure that once it's going into Lake David, which has capacity, to make sure that we're increasing the quality of the water there. We don't want just the water going there and just to get murky. This is generally the approach that the engineers took back when I was at the city of Winter Park. With their C.R.A., they had a very successful infrastructure program, and they married stormwater improvements with all their streetscape improvements. It was a dig once philosophy, but baffle boxes, kind of think of it as a large scale. It's kind of like a septic system. It's not taking in what you would think would be going into a septic system, but it's basically treating stormwater before it hits that larger water body.
Takes the trash out.
Would it be helpful to also put an aerator on the lake?
Say what?
Would it be helpful to also put an aerator on the lake that would significantly increase the water quality?
That is one of the things that we're looking at. We're also looking at specific bioswales along the way, just to kind of reduce the amount of work and volume that the baffle box has to take. So ultimately, the water will flow from Cherry Lake down to South Lake, down to Lake David, but along the way, there'll be landscapes and cutouts and opportunities for the water to kind of flow, not necessarily just in the curb and gutter, but then also in the landscape bed areas. But appreciate your interest in the project. It's going to be, it's Cherry and Lake Avenue. It's continuing something that we already started, but I think it's going to be a pilot and a demonstrated project just to demonstrate to the public this is how our investment is taking on not only just beautification, making a walkable downtown, but also increasing our stormwater capacity and infrastructure that's desperately needed down here.
And if I can build on what you're saying, it would be real helpful to have a newsletter from the C.R.A. that goes out quarterly that tells everybody what's going on, especially with the bypass coming in, this coming on, all these projects that are getting ready, and it's going to cause some discomfort to some people.
None of it's pretty.
Yeah.
Like, none of it's pretty things. It's all functional things.
Exactly.
Newsletters are
And
great
so
idea.
they understand, it's for the greater good, and we've got a lot of things going on, and nobody ever knows. It amazes me because we're so close to it when I start talking to people, and they say, what? And so it would be something for the group to think about, whether it's the committee or whatever, but having that. And also, as we talked earlier, when I go through Orlando, every project has a City of Orlando taxpayer fund dollars at work for this project. This is your C.R.A. dollars at work for this project. There's something posted there that says this is the city's, this is your tax dollars at work. And I tell you, I'm always impressed when I go around and see all the signs. But with our city and the C.R.A., I hope we can look at, it comes back to marketing, really. I hope we could look at something like that. Just for the sake of time, downtown plan, I think it's been talked about. The very first thing we got to have is what is downtown going to be before we put infrastructure in, before we don't know what the parking is, we don't know what the street thing is. I know it's been talked about for a long time, but we have to put our stake in the ground because you're not going to get the stormwater right if you don't know where the street is. And you're not, all those things, are we going to do facades? Are we going to bulldoze everything down? Those decisions have to be made this year, because in order for us to be on timing for when the thing ends. So I would challenge our staff and our group for that. Last two things, Splinter Island and Butterfly Garden. Again, we need a standard. We're never going to have Florida native plants sold to the public in Groveland with them looking at that and them looking down here. That's our billboard. If we want to be Florida native, it's got to be taken care of. And I don't know if there's a budget or not a budget, but I think there's Florida native and then there's weeds, and the weeds got to be taken out for the Florida native. And same thing down here. And as I said, I talked to one of the other staff members. I said, when we pass that, or we didn't pass the code yet on that, but everybody was looking at the Cherry Lake Tree Farms native area, and that this should be even better than that. And I hope that we have a standard set as we go forward, that this is what it has to be, and we have to mulch it, we have to weed it, and if there's more money needed, it needs to put in up front, because I understand that we got to hand do it, right, for the first 2 years.
All by hand.
And originally it was less maintenance, but we've got to really get down to what is it, what do we want it to look like, and how we sell it, because it is our billboard for if we ever want to get the Florida native in.
I cringe at the idea that some people say or will sell native landscaping as low maintenance. It should be low irrigation, which is a benefit, but it's never low maintenance. It's just a different type of maintenance. It's not the mow and blow kind of grass and pruning trees kind of maintenance that a lot of people are accustomed to. It's got a different look. It's got a different feel. There's a lot of natural charm and environmental benefits to it, if you will. But it's tedious work. It's being out there, weed eating, pruning the right way. Not everybody on these maintenance crews understands how to prune, say, molly grass, for instance. You have to replenish the mulch, typically with the pine mulch, fairly frequently, just to prevent that weed growth. So we have money set aside in the C.R.A. budget. I will admit our quality of the landscaping maintenance to date has been suboptimal. We're looking at a citywide RFP that will include the C.R.A. sites. There could be different landscape specialists in terms of this group's doing native, this group is doing, the tried and true traditional. But we need to make sure that there's quality service, regardless of who wins that. That's going to be a big part of the contract.
Yeah, I know you guys will take care of it. That's just our window into, that's what everybody sees coming into Groveland. We're going to have a sign there that says, this is Groveland. And right now, it doesn't look like it represents what at least I thought it was going to look like. I've had conversations with people that understand that. They think that we have things planted too far apart. That's what lets the weeds in. I don't know. I know how to grow corn. I don't know how to grow Florida native. I mow it down in my grove. So we need to, that is the window that we have. And everybody comes by there and everybody comes by down here. And if we've got to maintain credibility on it, or we'll never get the where we want to go with Florida native done. Okay. You have a report? You got a report, Tim?
I'll just work down the list. We touched on South Lake Avenue. Very thankful that that's moving forward in a good direction. It's going to be a showcase project. Downtown Gateway signage, we got your blessing from the C.R.A. again months ago on this project. We're on our second round of reviews with FDOT, trying to get those signs permitted. We had one sign, the main gateway sign, that had some constructability issues from the manufacturer, who recommended some slight changes. I have an email prepared that's going to go out to the C.R.A. tomorrow that's going to show you the difference in terms of the design that we took based on feedback. This should be easier to construct, easier to maintain. It's also coming in $6,000 cheaper than the other sign, so it's always better to value engineer and save money rather than lose, especially when you're having a better designed sign. So that's going to include also a map The Splitter Island gateway sign coming into the downtown. We've been working with the Community Health Center in terms of changing out that gateway sign. If you're coming in from Mascot, that sign is going to be changed out as well, with also some directional wayfinding that's going to help the Community Health Center and also people understand where downtown is, where certain parks are. So look at it as kind of another pilot project of what's more to come. And as we do these streetscape improvements with the infrastructure improvements, these signs will be incorporated into those projects. A, to let people know that they have a point of arrival into downtown Groveland, but then also where the various businesses and parks and civic facilities are located.
Can you make sure we send out the pictures of what the signs look like? Because everybody's probably thinking, what, before, wasn't it a metal sign? Wasn't it metal? Yeah, a metal and all that. So everybody who's not here, plus who is here, let them know what we've changed it to.
That's the major component of the email, is to demonstrate what changes were made. I'll ask for feedback, and if we have to take that back as a C.R.A. item, I'll listen to your feedback. Citywide landscaping RFP we talked about, and the emphasis on native landscaping, making sure that we have the quality there. C.R.A. plan evaluation. Thank you for those who attended the open houses that we had last week for the comp plan evaluation and appraisal report. Again, we're at the early phases of that project. We didn't necessarily have the turnout that we hoped for, but I appreciate you all in terms of the time commitment that you put into it, and the feedback that we did receive from you all, from our, our staff and consultants heard that, and we're analyzing that. I've asked John in tandem to evaluate the C.R.A. plan. It was last adopted back in 2021. Mr. Chairman, you have asked us in terms of where progress has been made on the C.R.A. plan, what's still outstanding. I think it's a good opportunity to make sure that, again, this was adopted before the strategic plan, about a year or 2 years before. We're updating the comp plan. It's ideal right now to make sure that everything aligns and everything functions cohesively. I've asked John the question of how the C.R.A. plan could possibly even be an element of the comprehensive plan. Much like the advisory board and governing board, nuances with regulations, there's some hurdles to look to on that. But I'm just making sure that I have consensus from the group for John to evaluate our C.R.A. plan and go through that process with us together this year and make sure that it's either exactly what we need or make some changes in tandem with the comp plan update.
We have consensus before we move on for him to have him reevaluate for the 2011 plan to see where we are now?
Yeah.
Dan?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, you have consensus.
The last item that I plan on working on with John, with your consensus, is what I'm coining the realignment ready plan. We were just talking about that with the realignment coming on board, starting in 2026, likely finish in 2028. We don't want to just inherit Broad and Orange and all the local streets wondering what to do with it. We have to have a plan, and not only for us in terms of budgeting, but also appropriations requests, grants. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but we can't just say, hey, we want to redo our streets. You have to have a little bit more detail behind that. Next slide, please. So this just kind of outlines, there's I think a 3 or 4 page draft scope that I've worked on. It's being looked at by TJ Fish in Public Works, Brenda Toscano, and Mike Hine. I think Mike looked at it yesterday, maybe as early as or recently as today. But making sure that we address Broad, Orange, the local streets, looking at circulation. Are we going to have one-way pairs still with angled parking, or are we going to have two-way streets with parallel parking? Stormwater and utilities. We have to understand what the assets are, where the water's draining, where there's deficiencies, and where that water could be moved to make sure that our businesses aren't being flooded, and when people walk on the streets, they're not being flooded either. Streetscape design. Tim's preference is having a historic brick street, matching up with what a lot of people think of as a historic, quaint Main Street oriented downtown. But we need to make sure that that's feasible, looking at costs and making sure that matches up with everybody's vision. Parking, of course, how parking, parking is dictated by our code to a certain extent as developers come in, where it's located in terms of either on street or in the rear properties. But there could be opportunities for shared parking lots that are provided by the city. There's also that question going back to, are we looking at angled parking or parallel parking? If we decide on one way, angled parking is going to give you more spaces. There's pros and cons to any decision that we make, but that has to be analyzed, and we have to make decisions on these things, because if we keep thinking about all the possibilities and don't make the decisions, we're not necessarily going to catch some of these grant opportunities, and we'll find ourselves in 2028 not ready to construct, and we don't want to be in that position. Also, Festival Park, it's right there. It's right next to their realignment. Having a vision for that, seeing how that could promote walkability, business recruitment and retention, but then also potentially some stormwater improvements built into the park. So that's kind of big picture. Again, the scope is multiple pages. I'm looking for staff for some feedback, but my goal is to work with John and bring back a proposal to this group. Again, taking advantage of that continuing services contract, the fact that he has great planners on his team, but also great engineers, and coming back, my goal is to have this plan completed before August of next year, so that when you're sitting down for the budget meetings for C.R.A. for August and September, you have enough input through the plan to make more informed decisions about the next fiscal year, which ultimately will have to be picking and choosing what components we're going to do design build, engineering drawings for, to make sure that we're able to construct the following year. So that's the realignment ready plan in a nutshell.
So the timeline is December on all this, is what you just committed to?
We need to be under contract in December and have a project complete by next year's budget cycle is my goal.
But all these things you were going to come back and report on in December?
Oh, correct.
Yeah, okay.
You all are going to do an RFP on this? Is that correct? Is that what I
Well,
understand?
it's a question among staff. We're open to feedback here. We do have the RFP process. It takes more time, and there's some costs associated with it. We also have continuing services contracts for a reason. We have GAI, we have HAF, we have groups that have planning and engineering expertise. We could go directly to them with our scope of work and get proposals, or we could do an RFP process.
I am talking about the landscaping. Did I see RFP for the landscaping?
For landscaping, yes.
Okay. Now, you may use continuing services for that? Is that what you said?
Not for the landscape. We don't really have a continuing services contract established for landscaping.
I would like to suggest, I don't know how you all do it, but I would like to suggest that you broaden the scope and look at women-owned and minority small businesses to notify them that this RFP is out there. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's Brooksville, Orlando, Leesburg, or wherever, but I would like to see the scope broaden for minority and women-owned small businesses. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Attorney, no report. Well, that will conclude the business. I'd like to ask you all to keep Jamaica in your thoughts and prayers. I mean, it's really a tough situation they're going to go through, and I think Mount Dora is teaching us a lesson that we've been talking about where is our floodplain, what is our new floodplain, 1,000-year flood. It seems to be happening all the time. So I don't know where we stand on that. I think that, was it St. John's Water Authority was looking at our flood management zones and stuff for insurance and things, because right now. It's crazy out there.
We've had several 500-year floods, and then
Yeah.
now 1,000, and like,
What's next?
how many years in a row can we reach the 500-year event?
They said today, the first time in, I don't know, in centuries, that we had three Category 5 hurricanes in the same year, and we're not done yet. So that whole flood thing is very important, because if we're building where there's going to be a flood, they're going to come looking at the city, and we're going to have to say, yeah, we didn't have that information for you. So
Your point, yeah, that's a citywide agenda item, and we're working with our floodplain manager on the scope of work there. We have a draft. We anticipate working through the P&Z board for advice and ultimately recommendations on both policy and code criteria and potential map changes ultimately coming to council.
what, 20 inches in a night, that was something, huh? So thank you, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to know whose signs